Book 8, Prayers, Salat. Narrated Abu Dar. Allah's Apostle said, while I was at Mecca the roof of my house was opened and Gabriel descended, opened my chest, and washed it with Zamzam water. Then he brought a golden tray full of wisdom and faith, and having poured its contents into my chest, he closed it. Then he took my hand and ascended with me to the nearest heaven. When I reached the nearest heaven, Gabriel said to the gatekeeper of the heaven, "Open the gate." The gatekeeper asked, "Who is it?" Gabriel answered, "Gabriel." He asked, "Is there anyone with you?" Gabriel replied, "Yes, Muhammad is with me." He asked, "Has he been called?" Gabriel said, "Yes." So the gate was opened and we went over the nearest heaven, and there we saw a man sitting with some people on his right and some on his left. When he looked towards his right, he laughed, and when he looked toward his left he wept. Then he said, "Welcome, O pious Prophet and pious Son." I asked Gabriel, "Who is he?" He replied, "He is Adam, and the people on his right and left are the souls of his offspring. Those on his right are the people of paradise, and those on his left are the people of hell, and when he looks towards his right he laughs, and when he looks towards his left he weeps." Then he ascended with me till he reached the second heaven, and he, Gabriel, said to its gatekeeper, "Open the gate." The gatekeeper said to him the same as the gatekeeper of the first heaven had said, and he opened the gate. Anas said, Abu Dar added that the Prophet met Adam, Idris, Moses, Jesus and Abraham. He, Abu Dar, did not mention on which heaven they were, but he mentioned that he, the Prophet, met Adam on the nearest heaven and Abraham on the sixth heaven. Anas said, when Gabriel along with the Prophet passed by Idris, the latter said, "Welcome, O pious Prophet and pious brother." The Prophet asked, "Who is he?" Gabriel replied, "He is Idris." The Prophet added, "I passed by Moses and he said, 'Welcome, O pious Prophet and pious brother.'" I asked Gabriel, "Who is he?" Gabriel replied, "He is Moses." Then I passed by Jesus and he said, "Welcome, O pious brother and pious Prophet." I asked, "Who is he?" Gabriel replied, "He is Jesus." Then I passed by Abraham and he said, "Welcome, O pious Prophet and pious Son." I asked Gabriel, "Who is he?" Gabriel replied, "He is Abraham." The Prophet added, then Gabriel ascended with me to a place where I heard the creaking of the pens. Ibn Hazm and Anas bin Malik said, the Prophet said, "Then Allah enjoined 50 prayers on my followers. When I returned with this order of Allah, I passed by Moses, who asked me, 'What has Allah enjoined on your followers?' I replied, 'He has enjoined 50 prayers on them.' Moses said, 'Go back to your Lord, and appeal for reduction, for your followers will not be able to bear it.' So I went back to Allah and requested for reduction, and he reduced it to half. When I passed by Moses again and informed him about it, he said, 'Go back to your Lord, as your followers will not be able to bear it.' So I returned to Allah and requested for further reduction, and half of it was reduced. I again passed by Moses and he said to me, 'Return to your Lord, for your followers will not be able to bear it.' So I returned to Allah and he said, 'These are 5 prayers and they are all equal to 50 in reward, for my word does not change.' I returned to Moses and he told me to go back once again. I replied, 'Now I feel shy of asking my Lord again.' Then Gabriel took me till we reached Sidratil Muntaha, lote tree of the utmost boundary, which was shrouded in colors indescribable. Then I was admitted into paradise, where I found small tents or walls made of pearls, and its earth was of musk. Narrated Aisha, the mother of believers, Allah enjoined the prayer. When he enjoined it, it was 2 rakat only in every prayer, both when in residence or on journey. Then the prayers offered on journey remained the same, but the rakat of the prayers for non-travelers were increased. Narrated Amatiyah, we were ordered to bring out our menstruating women and veiled women in the religious gatherings and invocation of Muslims on the 2 Eid festivals. These menstruating women were to keep away from their musalla. A woman asked, "O Allah's Apostle, what about one who does not have a veil?" He said, "Let her share the veil of her companion." Narrated Muhammad bin al-Munkadir, once Jabir prayed with his izar tied to his back while his clothes were lying beside him on a wooden peg. Somebody asked him, "Do you offer your prayer in a single izar?" He replied, "I did so to show it to a fool like you." Had any one of us two garments in the lifetime of the Prophet? Narrated Muhammad bin al-Munkadir, I saw Jabir bin Abdullah praying in a single garment and he said that he had seen the Prophet praying in a single garment. Narrated Ammar bin Abi Salama, the Prophet prayed in one garment and crossed its ends. Narrated Ammar bin Abi Salama, I saw the Prophet offering prayers in a single garment in the house of Salama and he had crossed its ends around his shoulders. Narrated Ammar bin Abi Salama, in the house of Salama I saw Allah's apostle offering prayers, wrapped in a single garment around his body with its ends crossed round his shoulders. Narrated Abu Mara, the freed slave of Hani, the daughter of Abi Talib said, I went to Allah's apostle in the year of the conquest of Mecca and found him taking a bath and his daughter Fatima was screening him. I greeted him. He asked, "Who is she?" I replied, "I'm Hani bint Abi Talib." He said, "Well come. O Hani." When he finished his bath he stood up and prayed 8 rakat while wearing a single garment wrapped round his body and when he finished I said, "O Allah's apostle, my brother has told me that he will kill a person whom I gave shelter and that person is so and so the son of Khaibar." The Prophet said, "We shelter the person whom you have sheltered." Added, "And that was before noon, Duha." Narrated Abu Hurairah, a person asked Allah's apostle about the offering of the prayer in a single garment. Allah's apostle replied, "Has every one of you got 2 garments?" Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet said, "None of you should offer prayer in a single garment that does not cover the shoulders." Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's apostle said, "Whoever prays in a single garment must cross its ends, over the shoulders." Narrated Said bin al-Harith, I asked Jabir bin Abdullah about praying in a single garment. He said, I traveled with the Prophet during some of his journeys, and I came to him at night for some purpose and I found him praying. At that time, I was wearing a single garment with which I covered my shoulders and prayed by his side. When he finished the prayer, he asked, "O Jabir, what has brought you here?" I told him what I wanted. When I finished, he asked, "O Jabir, what is this garment which I have seen and with which you covered your shoulders?" I replied, "It is a tight garment." He said, "If the garment is large enough, wrap it round the body, covering the shoulders, and if it is tight, too short, then use it as an izar, tie it around your waist only." Narrated Sal, the men used to pray with the Prophet with their izars tied around their necks as boys used to do. Therefore the Prophet told the women not to raise their heads till the men sat down straight, while praying. Narrated Mughira bin Shu'bah, once I was traveling with the Prophet and he said, "O Mughira, take this container of water." I took it and Allah's apostle went far away till he disappeared. He answered the call of nature and was wearing a Syrian cloak. He tried to take out his hands from its sleeve but it was very tight so he took out his hands from under it. I poured water and he performed ablution like that for prayers and passed his wet hands over his cuff, leather socks, and then prayed. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, while Allah's apostle was carrying stones, along with the people of Mecca for the building of the Kaaba wearing an izar, waist sheet cover. His uncle Al-Abbas said to him, "O my nephew, it would be better if you take off your izar and put it over your shoulders underneath the stones." So he took off his izar and put it over his shoulders, but he fell unconscious and since then he had never been seen naked. Narrated Abu Hurairah, a man stood up and asked the Prophet about praying in a single garment. The Prophet said, "Has every one of you 2 garments?" A man put a similar question to Ammar on which he replied, "When Allah makes you wealthier then you should clothe yourself properly during prayers. Otherwise one can pray with an izar and a rida, a sheet covering the upper part of the body, izar and a shirt, izar and a kaba, trousers and a rida, trousers and a shirt or trousers and a kaba, turban and a kaba or turban and a shirt." The narrator added, "I think that he also said a turban and a rida." Narrated Ibn Umar, a person asked Allah's Apostle, what should a Muhrim wear? He replied, he should not wear shirts, trousers, a burnous, a hooded cloak, or clothes which are stained with saffron or wars, a kind of perfume. Whoever does not find a sandal to wear can wear cuffs, but these should be cut short so as not to cover the ankles. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, Allah's Apostle forbade ishtimal as-sama, wrapping one's body with a garment so that one cannot raise its end or take one's hand out of it. He also forbade al-ihtiba, sitting on buttocks with knees close to abdomen and feet apart with the hands circling the knees, while wrapping oneself with a single garment, without having a part of it over the private parts. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet forbade two kinds of sales, that is al-mayaz and an-nabad. The former is a kind of sale in which the deal is completed if the buyer touches a thing, without seeing or checking it properly, and the latter is a kind of a sale in which the deal is completed when the seller throws a thing towards the buyer, giving him no opportunity to see, touch or check it, and the Prophet forbade also ishtimal as-sama and al-ihtiba in a single garment. Narrated Abu Hurairah, on the day of Nahr, 10th of Dhul-Hijjah, in the year prior to the last Hajj of the Prophet, when Abu Bakr was the leader of the pilgrims in that Hajj, Abu Bakr sent me along with other announcers to Mina to make a public announcement, no pagan is allowed to perform Hajj after this year, and no naked person is allowed to perform the tawaf around the Kaaba. Then Allah's Apostle sent all to read out the Surat Bara'a, at-Tawbah, to the people, so he made the announcement along with us on the day of Nahr in Mina. No pagan is allowed to perform Hajj after this year, and no naked person is allowed to perform the tawaf around the Kaaba. Narrated Muhammad bin al-Munkadir, I went to Jabir bin Abdullah and he was praying wrapped in a garment and his reader was lying beside him. When he finished the prayers, I said, O Abdullah, you pray in a single garment, while your reader is lying beside you. He replied, yes, I did it intentionally so that the ignorant ones like you might see me. I saw the Prophet praying like this. Narrated Abdulaziz, Anas said, when Allah's Apostle invaded Khaibar, we offered the Fajr prayer yearly in the morning, when it was still dark. The Prophet rode and Abu Talha rode too, and I was riding behind Abu Talha. The Prophet passed through the lane of Khaibar quickly and my knee was touching the thigh of the Prophet. He uncovered his thigh and I saw the whiteness of the thigh of the Prophet. When he entered the town, he said, Allahu Akbar. Khaibar is ruined. Whenever we approach near a hostile nation to fight, then evil will be the mourning of those who have been warned. He repeated this thrice. The people came out for their jobs and some of them said, Muhammad has come. Some of our companions added, with his army, we conquered Khaibar, took the captives, and the booty was collected. Dihya came and said, O Allah's Prophet, give me a slave girl from the captives. The Prophet said, go and take any slave girl. He took Safiya bint Huyai. A man came to the Prophet and said, O Allah's Apostles, you gave Safiya bint Huyai to Dihya and she is the chief mistress of the tribes of Qurayza and Nadir and she befits none but you. So the Prophet said, bring him along with her. So Dihya came with her, and when the Prophet saw her, he said to Dihya, take any slave girl other than her from the captives. Anas added, the Prophet then manumitted her and married her. Thabit asked Anas, O Abu Hamza, what did the Prophet pay her, Isma? He said, herself was Herma, for he manumitted her and then married her. Anas added, while on the way, Sulaim dressed her for marriage ceremony, and at night she sent her as a bride to the Prophet. So the Prophet was a bridegroom and he said, whoever has anything, food, should bring it. He spread out a leather sheet, for the food, and some brought dates and others cooking butter. I think he, Anas, mentioned as sought TQ. So they prepared a dish of hayis, a kind of meal. And that was walma, the marriage banquet, of Allah's Apostle. Narrated Aisha, Allah's Apostle used to offer the Fajr prayer and some believing women covered with their veiling sheets used to attend the Fajr prayer with him and then they would return to their homes unrecognized. Narrated Aisha, the Prophet prayed in a kamisa, a square garment, having marks. During the prayer, he looked at its marks. So when he finished the prayer he said, "Take this kamisa of mine to Abu Jam and get me his inbijaniya, a woolen garment without marks, as it, the kamisa, has diverted my attention from the prayer." Narrated Aisha, the Prophet said, "I was looking at its, kamisa's, marks during the prayers and I was afraid that it may put me in trial, by taking away my attention." Narrated Anas, Aisha had a kiram, a thin marked woolen curtain, with which he had screened one side of her home. The Prophet said, "Take away this kiram of yours, as its pictures are still displayed in front of me during my prayer, that is they divert my attention from the prayer." Narrated Uqba bin Amir, the Prophet was given a silken farouj as a present. He wore it while praying. When he had finished his prayer, he took it off violently as if with a strong aversion to it and said, "It is not the dress of Allah-fearing pious people." Narrated Abu Juhayfa, "I saw Allah's apostle in a red leather tent and I saw Bilal taking the remaining water with which the Prophet had performed ablution. I saw the people taking the utilized water impatiently and whoever got some of it rubbed it on his body and those who could not get any took the moisture from the others' hands. Then I saw Bilal carrying an anza, a spear-headed stick, which he planted in the ground. The Prophet came out tucking up his red cloak, and led the people in prayer and offered 2 rakat, facing the Kaaba, taking answer as a sutra for his prayer. I saw the people and animals passing in front of him beyond the answer." Narrated Abu Hazim, Sal bin Sa'd was asked about their Prophet's pulpit as to what thing it was made of. Sal replied, "None remains alive amongst the people who knows about it better than I. It was made of tamarisk, wood, of the forest. So and so, the slave of so and so prepared it for Allah's apostle. When it was constructed in place, in the mosque, Allah's apostle stood on it facing the Qibla and said Allahu Akbar, and the people stood behind him, and led the people in prayer. He recited and bowed and the people bowed behind him. Then he raised his head and stepped back, got down and prostrated on the ground and then he again ascended the pulpit, recited, bowed, raised his head and stepped back, got down and prostrate on the ground. So, this is what I know about the pulpit." Ahmad bin Hanbal said, "As the Prophet was at a higher level than the people, there is no harm according to the above-mentioned hadith if the Imam is at a higher level than his followers during the prayers." Narrated Anas bin Malik, "Once Allah's apostle fell off a horse and his leg or shoulder got injured. He swore that he would not go to his wives for 1 month and he stayed in a mashraba, attic room, having stairs made of date palm trunks. So his companions came to visit him, and he led them in prayer sitting, whereas his companions were standing. When he finished the prayer, he said, 'Imam is meant to be followed, so when he says Allahu Akbar, say Allahu Akbar, and when he bows, bow, and when he prostrates, prostrate, and if he prays standing, pray, standing.' After the 29th day the Prophet came down, from the attic room, and the people asked him, 'O Allah's apostle, you swore that you will not go to your wives for 1 month.' He said, 'The month is 29 days. Narrates Abdullah bin Shaddad, Maimuna said, Allah's apostle was praying while I was in my menses, sitting beside him, and sometimes his clothes would touch me during his prostration. Maimuna added, he prayed on a kamra, a small mat sufficient just for the face and the hands while prostrating during prayers. Narrated Ishaq, Anas bin Malik said, my grandmother Malaika invited Allah's apostle for a meal which she herself had prepared. He ate from it and said, get up. I will lead you in the prayer. Anas added, I took my hazir, washed it with water as it had become dark because of long use, and Allah's apostle stood on it. The orphan, Damira Oru, and I aligned behind him, and the old lady, Malaika, stood behind us. Allah's apostle led us in the prayer and offered 2 rakat and then left. Narrated Maimuna, Allah's apostle used to pray on Qamra. Narrated Abu Salama, Aisha the wife of the Prophet said, I used to sleep in front of Allah's apostle and my legs were opposite his Qibla, and in prostration he pushed my legs and I withdrew then, and when he stood, I stretched them. Aisha added, in those days the houses were without lights. Narrated Aisha, Allah's apostle prayed while I was lying like a dead body on his family bed between him and his Qibla. Narrated Awa, The Prophet prayed while Aisha was lying between him and his Qibla on the bed on which they used to sleep. Narrated Anas bin Malik, we used to pray with the Prophet and some of us used to place the ends of their clothes at the place of prostration because of scorching heat. Narrated Abu Maslama, said bin Yazid al-Azdi, I asked Anas bin Malik whether the Prophet had ever prayed with his shoes on. He replied yes. Narrated Ibrahim, Hammam bin al-Harith said, I saw Jarir bin Abdullah urinating. Then he performed ablution and passed his wet hands over his cuffs, stood up and prayed. He was asked about it. He replied that he had seen the Prophet doing the same. They approved of this narration, as Jarir was one of those who embraced Islam very late. Narrated Al-Mughira bin Shu'bah, I helped the Prophet in performing ablution and he passed his wet hands over his cuffs and prayed. Narrated Abdullah bin Malik, Ibn Bahina, when the Prophet prayed, he used to separate his arms from his body so widely that the whiteness of his armpits was visible. Narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's apostle said, whoever prays like us and faces our Qibla and eats our slaughtered animals is a Muslim and is under Allah's and his apostles' protection. So do not betray Allah by betraying those who are in his protection. Narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's apostle said, I have been ordered to fight the people till they say, none has the right to be worshipped but Allah. And if they say so, pray like our prayers, face our Qibla and slaughter as we slaughter, then their blood and property will be sacred to us and we will not interfere with them except legally and their reckoning will be with Allah. Narrated Maimun ibn Sayyar that he asked Anas bin Malik, O Abu Hamza, what makes the life and property of a person sacred? He replied, whoever says, none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, faces our Qibla during the prayers, prays like us and eats our slaughtered animal, then he is a Muslim, and has got the same rights and obligations as other Muslims have. Narrated Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, the Prophet said, while defecating, neither face nor turn your back to the Qibla but face either east or west. Abu Ayyub added, when we arrived in Sham we came across some lavatories facing the Qibla, therefore we turned ourselves while using them and asked for Allah's forgiveness. Narrated Amr bin Dmar, I asked Ibn Umar, can a person who has performed the tawaf around the Kaaba for Umrah but is not performed there, Sa'i, tawaf of Safa and Marwa, have a sexual relation with his wife? Ibn Umar replied, when the Prophet reached Mecca he performed the tawaf around the Kaaba, circumambulated it 7 times, and offered a 2-rakat prayer, at the place, behind the station, of Abraham, and then performed the tawaf, Sa'i, of Safa and Marwa, and verily in Allah's apostle you have a good example. Then we put the same question to Jabir bin Abdullah and he too replied, he should not go near his wife, for sexual relation, till he has finished the tawaf of Safa and Marwa. Narrated Mujahid, someone came to Ibn Umar and said, here is Allah's apostle entering the Kaaba. Ibn Umar said, I went there but the Prophet had come out of the Kaaba and I found Bilal standing between its 2 doors. I asked Bilal, did the Prophet pray in the Kaaba? Bilal replied, yes. He prayed 2 rakat between the 2 pillars which are to your left on entering the Kaaba. Then Allah's apostle came out and offered a 2 rakat prayer facing the Kaaba. Narrated Ibn Abbas, when the Prophet entered the Kaaba, he invoked Allah in each and every side of it and did not pray till he came out of it, and offered a 2 rakat prayer facing the Kaaba and said, this is the Qibla. Narrated Bara bin Azib, Allah's apostle prayed facing Baitul Maqdis for 16 or 17 months but he loved to face the Kaaba, at Mecca, so Allah revealed, verily, we have seen the turning of your face to the heaven. 2-144, so the Prophet faced the Kaaba and the fools amongst the people namely the Jews said, what has turned them from their Qibla, Baitul Maqdis, which they formerly observed? Allah revealed, say, to Allah belongs the east and the west. He guides whom he will to a straight path. 2-142, a man prayed with the Prophet, facing the Kaaba, and went out. He saw some of the Ansar praying the Asr prayer with their faces towards Baitul Maqdis. He said, I bear witness that I prayed with Allah's apostle facing the Kaaba. So all the people turned their faces towards the Kaaba. Narrated Jabir, Allah's apostle used to pray, optional, non-obligatory prayer, while riding on his mount, Rahla, wherever it turned, and whenever he wanted to pray the compulsory prayer he dismounted and prayed facing the Qibla. Narrated Abdullah, the Prophet prayed, and the sub-narrator Ibrahim said, I do not know whether he prayed more or less than usual, and when he had finished the prayers he was asked, O Allah's Apostle, has there been any change in the prayers? He said, What is it? The people said, You have prayed so much and so much. So the Prophet bent his legs, faced the Qibla and performed 2 prostrations, of su'u, and finished his prayers with tasim, by turning his face to right and left saying, As-salamu alaykum wa rahmatullah. When he turned his face to us he said, If there had been anything changed in the prayer, surely I would have informed you, but I am a human being like you and liable to forget like you. So if I forget, remind me, and if any one of you is doubtful about his prayer, he should follow what he thinks to be correct and complete his prayer accordingly and finish it and do 2 prostrations, of su'u. Narrated Umar bin al-Khattab, my Lord agreed with me in 3 things. 1. I said, O Allah's Apostle, I wish we took the station of Abraham as our praying place, for some of our prayers. So came the divine inspiration, and take you, people, the station of Abraham as a place of prayer, for some of your prayers, for example 2 rakat of Tawaf of Kaaba. 2.1252. And as regards the verse of the veiling of the women, I said, O Allah's Apostle, I wish you ordered your wives to cover themselves from the men because good and bad ones talk to them. So the verse of the veiling of the women was revealed. 3. Once the wives of the Prophet made a united front against the Prophet, and I said to them, It may be if he, the Prophet, divorced you, all, that his Lord, Allah, will give him instead of you wives better than you. So this verse, the same as I had said, was revealed. 66.5. Narrated Anas, as above, 395. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar, while the people were offering the Fajr prayer at Quba, near Medina, someone came to them and said, It has been revealed to Allah's Apostle tonight, and he has been ordered to pray facing their Kaaba. So turn your faces to the Kaaba. Those people were facing Sham, Jerusalem, so they turned their faces towards Kaaba, at Mecca. Narrated Abdullah, once the Prophet offered 5 rakat in Zuhr prayer. He was asked, Is there an increase in the prayer? The Prophet said, And what is it? They said, You have prayed 5 rakat. So he bent his legs and performed 2 prostrations, of su'u. Narrated Anas bin Malik, the Prophet saw some sputum in the direction of the Qibla, on the wall of the mosque, and he disliked that, and the sign of disgust was apparent from his face. So he got up and scraped it off with his hand and said, Whenever any one of you stands for the prayer, he is speaking in private to his Lord, or his Lord is between him and his Qibla. So, none of you should spit in the direction of the Qibla, but one can spit to the left or under his foot. The Prophet then took the corner of his sheet and spat in it and folded it and said, Or you can do like this. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar, Allah's Apostle saw sputum on the wall of the mosque in the direction of the Qibla and scraped it off. He faced the people and said, Whenever any one of you is praying, he should not spit in front of him, because in the prayer Allah is in front of him. Narrated Aisha, the mother of faithful believers, Allah's Apostle saw some nasal secretions, expectoration or sputum on the wall of the mosque in the direction of the Qibla and scraped it off. Narrated Abu Hurairah and Abu said, Allah's Apostle saw some expectoration on the wall of the mosque. He took gravel and scraped it off and said, If any one of you wanted to spit, he should neither spit in front of him nor on his right, but he could spit either on his left or under his left foot. Narrated Abu Hurairah and Abu said, Allah's Apostle saw some expectoration on the wall of the mosque. He took gravel and scraped it off and said, If any one of you wanted to spit, he should neither spit in front of him nor on his right, but could spit either on his left or under his left foot. Narrated Anas, the Prophet said, None of you should spit in front or on his right, but he could spit either on his left or under his foot. Narrated Anas bin Malik, the Prophet said, A faithful believer while in prayer is speaking in private to his Lord, so he should neither spit in front of him nor to his right side, but he could spit either on his left or under his foot. Narrated Abu said, the Prophet saw sputum on the wall of the mosque in the direction of the Qibla and scraped it off with gravel. Then he forbade spitting in front or on the right, but allowed it on one's left or under one's left foot. Narrated Anas bin Malik, the Prophet said, spitting in the mosque is a sin and its expiation is to bury it. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Prophet said, if any one of you stands for prayer, he should not spit in front of him because in prayer he is speaking in private to Allah, and he should not spit on his right as there is an angel, but he can spit either on his left or under his left foot and bury it, that is expectoration. Narrated Anas, the Prophet saw expectoration on the wall of the mosque, in the direction of the Qibla, and scraped it off with his hand. It seemed that he disliked it, and the sign of disgust was apparent from his face. He said, if any one of you stands for the prayer, he is speaking in private to his Lord, or his Lord is between him and his Qibla, therefore he should not spit towards his Qibla, but he could spit either on his left or under his foot. Then he took the corner of his sheet and spat in it, folded it and said, or do like this. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Apostle said, do you consider or see that my face is towards the Qibla? By Allah, neither your submissiveness nor your bowing is hidden from me, surely I see you from my back. Narrated Anas bin Malik, the Prophet led us in a prayer and then got up on the pulpit and said, in your prayer and bowing, I certainly see you from my back as I see you, while looking at you. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar, Allah's Apostle ordered for a horse race. The trained horses were to run from a place called Al-Hayfa to Thaniyat al-Wada, and the horses which were not trained were to run from Al-Thaniya to the Masjid, Mosque of Bani Zarig. The sub-narrator added, Ibn Umar was one of those who took part in the race. Narrated Anas, some goods came to Allah's Apostle from Bahrain. The Prophet ordered the people to spread them in the mosque. It was the biggest amount of goods Allah's Apostle had ever received. He left for prayer and did not even look at it. After finishing the prayer, he sat by those goods and gave from those to everybody he saw. Al-Abbas came to him and said, O Allah's Apostle, give me something, too, because I gave ransom for myself and a cow. Allah's Apostle told him to take. So he stuffed his garment with it and tried to carry it away, but he failed to do so. He said, O Allah's Apostle, order someone to help me in lifting it. The Prophet refused. He then said to the Prophet, will you please help me to lift it? Allah's Apostle refused. Then Al-Abbas threw some of it and tried to lift it, but failed. He again said, O Allah's Apostle, order someone to help me to lift it. He refused. Al-Abbas then said to the Prophet, will you please help me to lift it? He again refused. Then Al-Abbas threw some of it, and lifted it on his shoulders and went away. Allah's Apostle kept on watching him till he disappeared from his sight and was astonished at his greediness. Allah's Apostle did not get up till the last coin was distributed. Narrated Anas, I found the Prophet in the mosque along with some people. He said to me, did Abu Talha send you? I said, yes. He said, for a meal? I said, yes. Then he said to his companions, get up. They set out and I was ahead of them. Narrated Sal bin Sa'ad, a man said, O Allah's Apostle, if a man finds another man with his wife, committing adultery, should the husband kill him? Later on I saw them, the man and his wife, doing li'an in the mosque. Narrated Itban bin Malik, the Prophet came to my house and said, where do you like me to pray? I pointed to a place. The Prophet then said, Allahu Akbar, and we aligned behind him and he offered a 2-rakat prayer. Narrated Itban bin Malik, who was one of the companions of Allah's Apostle and one of the Ansars who took part in the Battle of Badr. I came to Allah's Apostle and said, O Allah's Apostle, I have weak eyesight and I lead my people in prayers. When it rains the water flows in the valley between me and my people, so I cannot go to their mosque to lead them in prayer. O Allah's Apostle, I wish you would come to my house and pray in it so that I could take that place as a musalla. Allah's Apostle said, Allah willing, I will do so. Next day after the sun rose high, Allah's Apostle and Abu Bakr came and Allah's Apostle asked for permission to enter. I gave him permission and he did not sit on entering the house but said to me, where do you like me to pray? I pointed to a place in my house. So Allah's apostle stood there and said, Allahu Akbar, and we all got up and aligned behind him and offered a 2-rakat prayer and ended it with taslim. We requested him to stay for a meal called Kazira which we had prepared for him. Many members of our family gathered in the house and one of them said, Where is Malik bin al-Dukhashan or Ibn al-Dukhshan? One of them replied, He is a hypocrite and does not love Allah and his apostle. Hearing that, Allah's apostle said, Do not say so. Haven't you seen that he said, None has the right to be worshipped but Allah for Allah's sake only? He said, Allah and his apostle know better. We have seen him helping and advising hypocrites. Allah's apostle said, Allah has forbidden their hell fire for those who say, None has the right to be worshipped but Allah for Allah's sake only. Narrated Aisha. The Prophet used to start everything from the right, for good things, whenever it was possible in all his affairs, for example, in washing, combing or wearing shoes. Narrated Aisha. Habiba and Salama mentioned about a church they had seen in Ethiopia in which there were pictures. They told the Prophet about it, on which he said, If any religious man dies amongst those people they would build a place of worship at his grave and make these pictures in it. They will be the worst creature in the sight of Allah on the day of resurrection. Narrated Anas. When the Prophet arrived Medina he dismounted at Medina amongst a tribe called Banu bin Auf. He stayed there for 14 nights. Then he sent for Bani and Najjar and they came armed with their swords. As if I am looking, just now, as the Prophet was sitting over his Rada mount, with Abu Bakr riding behind him and all Banu and Najjar around him till he dismounted at the courtyard of Abu Ayyub's house. The Prophet loved to pray wherever the time for the prayer was due, even at sheepfolds. Later on he ordered that a mosque should be built and sent for some people of Banu and Najjar and said, O Banu and Najjar, suggest to me the price of this walled piece of land of yours. They replied, No. By Allah, we do not demand its price except from Allah. Anas added, There were graves of pagans in it and some of it was unleveled and there were some date palm trees in it. The Prophet ordered that the graves of the pagans be dug out and the unleveled land be level-led and the date palm trees be cut down. So all that was done. They aligned these cut date palm trees towards the Qibla of the mosque, as a wall, and they also built 2 stone side walls of the mosque. His companions brought the stones while reciting some poetic verses. The Prophet was with them and he kept on saying, There is no goodness except that of the hereafter, O Allah. So please forgive the Ansars and the emigrants. Narrated Abu al-Tayya, Anas said, The Prophet prayed in the sheepfold. Later on I heard him saying, He prayed in the sheepfolds before the construction of the mosque. Narrated Nafi, I saw Ibn Umar praying while taking his camel as a sutra in front of him and he said, I saw the Prophet doing the same. Narrated Abdullah bin Abbas, the sun eclipsed and Allah's apostle offered the eclipse prayer and said, I have been shown the hellfire, now, and I never saw a worse and horrible sight than the sight I have seen today. Narrated Ibn Umar, the Prophet had said, Offer some of your prayers, nawafil, at home, and do not take your houses as graves. Narrated Abdullah bin Umar, Allah's apostle said, Do not enter the places of these people where Allah's punishment had fallen unless you do so weeping. If you do not weep, do not enter the places of these people, because Allah's curse and punishment which fell upon them may fall upon you. Narrated Aisha, Salama told Allah's apostle about a church which she had seen in Ethiopia and which was called Mariya. She told him about the pictures which she had seen in it. Allah's apostle said, If any righteous pious man dies amongst them, they would build a place of worship at his grave and make these pictures in it. They are the worst creatures in the sight of Allah. Narrated Aisha and Abdullah bin Abbas, when the last moment of the life of Allah's apostle came he started putting his kamisa on his face and when he felt hot and short of breath he took it off his face and said, May Allah curse the Jews and Christians for they built the places of worship at the graves of their prophets. The Prophet was warning Muslims of what those had done. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's apostle said, May Allah's curse be on the Jews for they built the places of worship at the graves of their prophets. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, Allah's Apostle said, I have been given 5 things which were not given to any amongst the prophets before me. These are, 1. Allah made me victorious by his frightening my enemies, for a distance of 1 month's journey. 2. The earth has been made for me, and for my followers, a place for praying and a thing to perform tayammum. Therefore my followers can pray wherever the time of the prayer is due. 3. The booty has been made whole, lawful, for me, and was not made so for anyone else. 4. Every prophet used to be sent to his nation exclusively, but I have been sent one to all mankind. 5. I have been given the right of intercession, on the day of resurrection. Narrated Aisha, there was a black slave girl belonging to an Arab tribe and they manumitted her but she remained with them. The slave girl said, once one of their girls, of that tribe, came out wearing a red leather scarf decorated with precious stones. It fell from her or she placed it somewhere. A kite passed by that place, saw it lying there and mistaking it for a piece of meat, flew away with it. Those people searched for it but they did not find it. So they accused me of stealing it and started searching me and even searched my private parts. The slave girl further said, by Allah, while I was standing, in that state, with those people, the same kite passed by them and dropped the red scarf and it fell amongst them. I told them, this is what you accused me of and I was innocent and now this is it. Aisha added, that slave girl came to Allah's Apostle and embraced Islam. She had a tent or a small room with a low roof in the mosque. Whenever she called on me, she had a talk with me and whenever she sat with me, she would recite the following, the day of the scarf band, was one of the wonders of our Lord, verily he rescued me from the disbelievers' town. Aisha added, once I asked her, what is the matter with you? Whenever you sit with me, you always recite these poetic verses. On that she told me the whole story. Narrated Nafa, Abdullah bin Ammar said, I used to sleep in the mosque of the Prophet while I was young and unmarried. Narrated Sal bin Sa'ad, Allah's Apostle went to Fatima's house but did not find Ali there. So he asked, where is your sin? She replied, there was something between us and he got angry with me and went out. He did not sleep, midday nap, in the house. Allah's Apostle asked a person to look for him. That person came and said, O Allah's Apostle, he, Ali, is sleeping in the mosque. Allah's Apostle went there and Ali was lying. His upper body cover had fallen down to one side of his body and he was covered with dust. Allah's Apostle started cleaning the dust from him saying, get up. O Abu Turab. Get up. O Abu Turab, literally means, O father of dust. Narrated Abu Hurairah, I saw 70 of As-Safa men and none of them had a reader, a garment covering the upper part of the body. They had either izars only, or sheets which they tied round their necks. Some of these sheets reached the middle of their legs and some reached their heels and they used to gather them with their hands lest their private parts should become naked. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, I went to the Prophet in the mosque. The sub-narrator Mazir thought that Jabir had said, in the forenoon. He ordered me to pray 2 rakat. He owed me some money and he repaid it to me and gave more than what was due to me. Narrated Abu Qatada al-Islami, Allah's Apostle said, if any one of you enters a mosque, he should pray 2 rakat before sitting. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Apostle said, the angels keep on asking Allah's forgiveness for any one of you, as long as he is at his salah, praying place, and he does not pass wind, hadath. They say, O Allah, forgive him, O Allah, be merciful to him. Narrated Abdullah bin Ammar, in the lifetime of Allah's Apostle the mosque was built of adobes, its roof of the leaves of date palms and its pillars of the stems of date palms. Abu Bakr did not alter it. Ammar expanded it on the same pattern as it was in the lifetime of Allah's Apostle by using adobes, leaves of date palms and changing the pillars into wooden ones. Uthman changed it by expanding it to a great extent and built its walls with engraved stones and lime and made its pillars of engraved stones and its roof of teak wood. Narrated Ikrimah, Ibn Abbas said to me and to his son Ali, go to Abu Said and listen to what he narrates. So we went and found him in a garden looking after it. He picked up his reader, wore it and sat down and started narrating till the topic of the construction of the mosque reached. He said, "We were carrying one adobe at a time while Amma was carrying two. The Prophet saw him and started removing the dust from his body and said, 'May Allah be merciful to Amma. He will be inviting them, that is his murderers, the rebellious group, to paradise, and they will invite him to hellfire.' Amma said, 'I seek refuge with Allah from affliction.'" Narrated Sal, Allah's apostle sent someone to a woman telling her to order her slave, carpenter, to prepare a wooden pulpit for him to sit on. Narrated Jabir, a woman said, "O Allah's apostle, shall I get something constructed for you to sit on, as I have a slave who is a carpenter?" He replied, "Yes, if you like." So she had that pulpit constructed. Narrated Ubaydullah al-Qurani, I heard Uthman bin Affan saying, when people argued too much about his intention to reconstruct the mosque of Allah's apostle, "You have talked too much." I heard the Prophet saying, "Whoever built a mosque," Bakr thought that Ism, another sub-narrator, added, intending Allah's pleasure, Allah would build for him a similar place in paradise. Narrated I heard Jabir bin Abdullah saying, a man passed through the mosque carrying arrows. Allah's apostle said to him, "Hold them by their heads." Narrated Abu Burda bin Abdullah, on the authority of his father, the Prophet said, "Whoever passes through our mosques or markets with arrows should hold them by their heads lest he should injure a Muslim." Narrated Husayn bin Thabit al-Ansari, I asked Abu Hurairah by Allah, "Tell me the truth whether you heard the Prophet saying, 'O Husayn'?" Reply on behalf of Allah's apostle, "O Allah, help him with the Holy Spirit." Abu Hurairah said, "Yes." Narrated Aisha, once I saw Allah's apostle at the door of my house while some Ethiopians were playing in the mosque, displaying their skill with spears. Allah's apostle was screening me with his reader so as to enable me to see their display. Urwa said that Aisha said, "I saw the Prophet and the Ethiopians were playing with their spears." Narrated Aisha, Barira came to seek my help regarding her manumission. I told her, "If you like I would pay your price to your masters, but your al-Wala one would be for me." Her masters said, "If you like, you can pay what remains of the price of her manumission." Safiyan the sub-narrator once said, "Or if you like you can manumit her, but her inheritance, al-Wala would be for us." When Allah's apostle came, I spoke to him about it. He said, "Buy her and manumit her. No doubt al-Wala one is for the manumitted." Then Allah's apostle stood on the pulpit, or Allah's apostle ascended the pulpit as Safiyan once said, and said, "What about some people who impose conditions which are not present in Allah's book, laws? Whoever imposes conditions which are not in Allah's book, laws, his conditions will be invalid even if he imposed them 100 times. Narrated Kab, in the mosque I asked Ibn Abi Hadrad to pay the debt which he owed to me, and our voices grew louder. Allah's apostle heard that while he was in his house. So he came to us raising the curtain of his room and said, "O Kab." I replied, "Labbaik, O Allah's apostle." He said, "O Kab, reduce your debt to 1/2, gesturing with his hand." I said, "O Allah's apostle, I have done so." Then Allah's apostle said to Ibn Abi Hadrad, "Get up and pay the debt to him." Narrated Abu Hurairah, a black man or a black woman used to sweep the mosque and he or she died. The Prophet asked about her, or him. He was told that she, or he, had died. He said, "Why did you not inform me? Show me his grave, or her grave." So he went to her, his, grave and offered her, his, funeral prayer. Narrated Aisha, when the verses of Surat al-Baqarah about the usury riba were revealed, the Prophet went to the mosque and recited them in front of the people and then banned the trade of alcohol. Narrated Abu Rafi, Abu Hurairah said, "A man or a woman used to clean the mosque." A sub-narrator said, "Most probably a woman." Then he narrated the hadith of the Prophet. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet said, "Last night a big demon, Afrit, from the jinns came to me and wanted to interrupt my prayers, or said something similar, but Allah enabled me to overpower him. I wanted to fasten him to one of the pillars of the mosque so that all of you could see him in the morning, but I remembered the statement of my brother Solomon, as stated in Quran, 'My Lord, Forgive me and bestow on me a kingdom such as shall not belong to anybody after me. 38.35. The sub-narrator Raw said, he, the demon, was dismissed humiliated. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet sent some horsemen to Najd and they brought a man called Thamama bin Utal from Bani Hanifa. They fastened him to one of the pillars of the mosque. The Prophet came and ordered them to release him. He went to a garden of date palms near the mosque, took a bath and entered the mosque again and said, none has the right to be worshipped but Allah and Muhammad is his apostle, that is he embraced Islam. Narrated Aisha, on the day of Al-Khandak, Battle of the Trench, the medial arm vein of Sa'd bin Mu'adh was injured and the Prophet pitched a tent in the mosque to look after him. There was another tent for Banu Ghaffar in the mosque and the blood started flowing from Sa'd's tent to the tent of Bani Ghaffar. They shouted, O occupants of the tent! What is coming from you to us? They found that Sa'd's wound was bleeding profusely and Sa'd died in his tent. Narrated Salama, I complained to Allah's apostle that I was sick. He told me to perform the tawaf behind the people while riding. So I did so and Allah's apostle was praying beside the Kaaba and reciting the surah starting with Waqta Waqaita bin Mastur. Narrated Anas bin Malik, two of the companions of the Prophet departed from him on a dark night and were led by two lights like lamps, going in front of them from Allah as a miracle, lighting the way in front of them, and when they parted, each of them was accompanied by one of these lights till he reached their respective houses. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, the Prophet delivered a sermon and said, Allah gave a choice to one of his slaves either to choose this world or what is with him in the hereafter. He chose the latter. Abu Bakr wept. I said low myself, why is this sheikh weeping, if Allah gave choice to one of his slaves either to choose this world or what is with him in the hereafter and he chose the latter. And that slave was Allah's apostle himself. Abu Bakr knew more than us. The Prophet said, O Abu Bakr, don't weep. The Prophet added, Abu Bakr has favored me much with his property and company. If I were to take a Khalil from mankind I would certainly have taken Abu Bakr, but the Islamic brotherhood and friendship is sufficient. Close all the gates in the mosque except that of Abu Bakr. Narrated Ibn Abbas, Allah's apostle in his fatal illness came out with a piece of cloth tied round his head and sat on the pulpit. After thanking and praising Allah he said, there is no one who had done more favor to me with life and property than Abu Bakr bin Abi Quhafa. If I were to take a Khalil, I would certainly have taken Abu Bakr, but the Islamic brotherhood is superior. Close all the small doors in this mosque except that of Abu Bakr. Narrated Nafi, Ibn Umar said, the Prophet arrived at Mecca and sent for Uthman bin Talha. He opened the gate of the Kaaba and the Prophet, Bilal, Usama bin Zayd and Uthman bin Talha entered the Kaaba and then they closed its door, from inside. They stayed there for an hour, and then came out. Ibn Umar added, I quickly went to Bilal and asked him, whether the Prophet had prayed. Bilal replied, he prayed in it. I asked, where? He replied, between the two pillars. Ibn Umar added, I forgot to ask how many rakat he, the Prophet, had prayed in the Kaaba. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's apostle sent some horsemen to Najd and they brought a man called Thamama bin Utal from Bani Hanifa. They fastened him to one of the pillars of the mosque. Narrated Al-Suwayb bin Yazid, I was standing in the mosque and somebody threw a gravel at me. I looked and found that he was Umar bin al-Khattab. He said to me, fetch those two men to me. When I did, he said to them, who are you? Or, where do you come from? They replied, we are from Taif. Umar said, were you from this city, Medina, I would have punished you for raising your voices in the mosque of Allah's apostle. Narrated Ka'b bin Malik, during the lifetime of Allah's apostle I asked Ibn Abi Hadrad in the mosque to pay the debt which he owed to me and our voices grew so loud that Allah's apostle heard them while he was in his house. So he came to us after raising the curtain of his room. The Prophet said, O Ka'b bin Malik. I replied, Labbaik, O Allah's apostle. He gestured with his hand to me to reduce the debt to 1/2. I said, O Allah's apostle, have done it. Allah's apostle said, to Ibn Hadrad, get up and pay it. Narrated Nafi, Ibn Umar said, While the Prophet was on the pulpit, a man asked him how to offer the night prayers. He replied, "Pray 2 rakat at a time and then 2 and then 2 and so on, and if you are afraid of the dawn, the approach of the time of the Fajr prayer, pray 1 rak'ah and that will be the witr for all the rakat which you have offered." Ibn Umar said, "The last rakat of the night prayer should be odd, for the Prophet ordered it to be so." Narrated Ibn Umar, a man came to the Prophet while he was delivering the sermon and asked him how to offer the night prayers. The Prophet replied, "Pray 2 rakat at a time and then 2 and then 2 and so on, and if you are afraid of dawn, the approach of the time of the Fajr prayer, pray 1 rak'ah and that will be the with for all the rakat which you have prayed." Narrated Ubaydullah bin Abdullah bin Umar, a man called the Prophet while he was in the mosque. Narrated Abu Waqid al-Thi, while Allah's apostle was sitting in the mosque, with some people, 3 men came, 2 of them came in front of Allah's apostle and the third one went away, and then one of them found a place in the circle and sat there while the second man sat behind the gathering, and the third one went away. When Allah's apostle finished his preaching, he said, "Shall I tell you about these 3 persons? One of them betook himself to Allah and so Allah accepted him and accommodated him. The second felt shy before Allah, so Allah did the same for him and sheltered him in his mercy, and did not punish him, while the third turned his face from Allah, and went away, so Allah turned his face from him likewise." Narrated Abad bin Tamim, that his uncle said, "I saw Allah's apostle lying flat, on his back, in the mosque with one leg on the other." Narrated Said bin al-Musayyab that Ammar and Uthman used to do the same. Narrated Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, "I had seen my parents following Islam since I attained the age of puberty. Not a day passed but the Prophet visited us, both in the mornings and evenings. My father Abu Bakr thought of building a mosque in the courtyard of his house and he did so. He used to pray and recite the Quran in it. The pagan women and their children used to stand by him and look at him with surprise. Abu Bakr was a soft-hearted person and could not help weeping while reciting the Quran. The chiefs of the Quraysh pagans became afraid of that is that their children and women might be affected by the recitation of Quran." Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet said, "The prayer offered in congregation is 25 times more superior, in reward, to the prayer offered alone in one's house or in a business center, because if one performs ablution and does it perfectly, and then proceeds to the mosque with the sole intention of praying, then for each step which he takes towards the mosque, Allah upgrades him a degree in reward and forgives, crosses out once until he enters the mosque. When he enters the mosque he is considered in prayer as long as he is waiting for the prayer, and the angels keep on asking for Allah's forgiveness for him and they keep on saying, 'O Allah, be merciful to him, O Allah, forgive him,' as long as he keeps on sitting at his praying place and does not pass wind." See Hadith number 620. Narrated Ibn Umar or Ibn Umr, the Prophet clasped his hands, by interlacing his fingers. Narrated Abdullah that Allah's apostle said, "O Abdullah bin Umr, what will be your condition when you will be left with the sediments of worst people? They will be in conflict with each other." Narrated Abu Musa, the Prophet said, "A faithful believer to a faithful believer is like the bricks of a wall, enforcing each other." While saying that, the Prophet clasped his hands, by interlacing his fingers. Narrates Ibn Sirin, Abu Hurairah said, "Allah's apostle led us in one of the 2 Aisha prayers. Abu Hurairah named that prayer but I forgot it." Abu Hurairah added, "He prayed 2 rakat and then finished the prayer with taslim. He stood up near a piece of wood lying across the mosque and leaned on it in such a way as if he was angry. Then he put his right hand over the left and clasped his hands by interlacing his fingers and then put his right cheek on the back of his left hand. The people who were in haste left the mosque through its gates. They wondered whether the prayer was reduced. And amongst them were Abu Bakr and Umar, but they hesitated to ask the Prophet. A long-handed man called Hulyadain asked the Prophet, "O Allah's apostle, have you forgotten or has the prayer been reduced?" The Prophet replied, "I have neither forgotten nor has the prayer been reduced." The Prophet added, "Is what Hulyadain has said true?" They, the people, said, "Yes, it is true." The Prophet stood up again and led the prayer, completing the remaining prayer, forgotten by him, and performed talsum, and then said, Allahu Akbar. And then he did a prostration as he used to prostrate or longer than that. He then raised his head saying, Allahu Akbar. He then again said, Allahu Akbar, and prostrated as he used to prostrate or longer than that. Then he raised his head and said, Allahu Akbar. The sub-narrator added, I think that they asked, Ibn Sirin, whether the Prophet completed the prayer with taslim. He replied, I heard that Imran bin Hussein had said, then he, the Prophet, did taslim. Narrated Fudail bin Sulaiman, Musa bin Uqba said, I saw Salim bin Abdullah looking for some places on the way and prayed there. He narrated that his father used to pray there, and had seen the Prophet praying at those very places. Narrated Nafi on the authority of Ibn Ammar who said, I used to pray at those places. Musa the narrator added, I asked Salim, on which he said, I agree with Nafi concerning those places, except the mosque situated at the place called Sharaf Arur. Narrated Hadith is about the various places on the way from Medina to Mecca where the Prophet prayed, and they're in locations impossible to translate.